are live. Oh my God. Yes. Listen, I'm so excited. We are back. It's 2023 and we're back at it. The gist is back. I can't even tell you how excited I am to see you two on the screen. And we
Back
got
at you.
so much to talk about. So anybody who's tuning in and listening, welcome back to the gist. Because when it comes to life, love, and the pursuit of happiness, sometimes you just need a moment to get your shit together. I couldn't wait to say that again. It was like sometimes a moment to get your shit together. And so do we. I'm your host, Kay Bella. I got my co-hosts here, Val and Steph.
Hey, Happy New Year.
Hey.
It's 2023.
2023. Isn't that crazy?
Praise God.
Don't you remember when it was going to be year 2000? Like,
oh yeah, all the panic.
Right. Like,
is everything going to shut down?
Will you still be able to get money out the ATM? Now
we're
23 years in. Right.
Yeah, we're fine.
Right.
What you say here? We're fine.
We're fine.
The world was coming to an end, and people were buying water. And just like when the pandemic came, people were buying toilet paper and paper towels. I don't know why.
I will never forgive people for that toilet paper issue. I will never forgive them for that.
Because that created the shortage. It wasn't that there was a shortage. The fact that everybody was in there buying it like they would never be able to go out again is what created the shortage.
But I keep going back to the bath tissue and the hand soap. What had people been using?
Well, they were using it. They were just buying it because they thought they weren't going to be able to come out. But I mean,
I don't know, Val. I think some people weren't using hand soap.
You think? Well, I'm not saying everybody. I'm sure there were some people not using it.
I still don't. I didn't understand the whole, like, why were those the chosen things? You know what I mean? It wasn't.
You would have thought like batteries, maybe, so you have like emergency supplies, batteries and canned goods and flashlight. No, toilet paper. I'm telling you, people weren't washing their hands or their.
That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate.
What you say? That's unfortunate that they were not doing that.
It's a reason why they had those PSAs. Here's how you wash your hands. Get in between.
I don't understand that whole thing. I just don't. But anyway, your new year was good. You brought it in fine. Everybody, I'm assuming I have talked to you all since New Year. So I'm assuming everybody's new year was great.
Yeah, it was.
It was.
Nice. So I do want to start by saying congratulations to those Golden Globe winners last night. Quinta Brunson for Abbott Elementary. Angela Bassett for Wakanda Forever. Eddie Murphy. Tyler James Williams, who used to play on Everybody Loves Chris. Like, it was a great night for Gerard Carmichael for hosting. It was just a beautiful, beautiful night.
It was a lovely evening.
Abbott Elementary went there. They were there. Have you all seen Abbott Elementary?
I have not seen it, and I've said I want to.
Val.
And I haven't. But I mean, just from when I've seen the previews, it looks funny. It looks like something I would really enjoy. I just haven't made time to do it.
Just binge watch it. I don't watch it weekly. I'll just go over to Hulu and watch a couple episodes at a time. I'll just binge on 4 episodes or something.
Yeah, it is a really good show.
And what I love about it is it's very smart. It's not like silly slapstick humor. It's just smart humor that you get, and it's just you'll see like people in the characters. It's good.
Yeah,
I'll have to make some time to do
and
that.
Very well done.
I love the fact that it was based on Philadelphia schools. That it was based on the Philadelphia school system. So I love that. I saw her do an interview with Kevin Hart on that New Year's show they did. It was Kevin Hart and Keenan, what's his name? The one from Saturday Night Live.
Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, they did some show reminiscing on 2022. Yeah, and they interviewed her on there talking about West Philly. So her and Kevin had that in common.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So it was a great night for Black folks at the Golden Globes. So make no mistake, it was a good night. The other thing is our topic tonight. So, ghosting and gaslighting. Okay. I mean, I don't even know where to start.
G and G.
G and G.
I don't even know where to start with ghosting and gaslighting. Like what? So let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. Do you know the difference between the two?
Well, I do now, because when you sent the topic, I was like, well, I'm familiar with ghosting. I wasn't as familiar with gaslighting, so I had to Google that. And I did. Okay. So now I know the difference. Right. So now I know the difference. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I know them both intimately. Either experiences I had or people very close to me, experiences they had.
Yeah. So, the ghosting part kind of is self-explanatory. Somebody you're with and it doesn't necessarily have to be an intimate relationship. Mm-hmm. It can be any relationship. Mm-hmm. And just that the communication disappears.
They talk about it with regard to interviewing. You interview with someone, you go on 2-3 interviews, and then never hear back from them. Never hear back from anyone in HR, right? Which is so unprofessional.
I never even thought about it in terms of that.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that. Yes.
So here's what's funny about it. I mean, the whole ghosting thing. I mean, first of all, it's not new. I mean, you think about it. We've all before we just called it. Yeah, I was dating this guy for a couple of weeks. I never heard from him again. That's just what we called it before. Right. Now it's ghosting, or even like Stephanie talking about the scenario of HR. Like, I mean, who hasn't gone on a job interview? I remember when I got laid off from my job, the one I was at for 15 years, and I went on an interview, and I interviewed with this company like 3 times. I was picking out business cards because I knew I had this job. And then all of a sudden I didn't get it. No explanation, no letter. But I mean, that's not the first time that's happened. It's just like, okay, they didn't pick you.
or the old-fashioned story, the guy goes out for, a loaf of bread or a pack of cigarettes and never comes back home to his family.
But there was a time though that if you went on a job interview and you did not get it, you did get a letter that said, we went in another direction, or we chose someone else. We chose another candidate that better fits the qualifications for that particular position.
You did.
It wasn't just, they just did away with you and forgot about you. Like that was someone's job.
But I don't think anyone cares. If they go on an interview and hear nothing back, I don't think people care. It's when you have been pursuing me, and then all of a sudden there's no contact. Like you just give a courtety letter and say we went another direction.
I think the reason why some of that happened, I mean, and you're right, because, years ago, a long time ago, that was somebody's job. But you also got to think about, how applying for jobs has changed. Like I remember being a hiring manager, and I would have a position, and people were reading about it in the newspaper. You might get 10, 20 resumes. Now, because of Career Builder and LinkedIn and all the places that you post positions, as a hiring manager, if I post a position, I get like 500 resumes. So I think that's what has changed it. Technology has just changed it, that it's just hard to get back to everybody that applied for that job.
But it's not about getting back to people. It's not about getting back to the ones who applied, but the minute you have an interview, I'm not talking about the 500 resumes that have come in. The minute you have an interview with someone, Those are the people, because you're not going to interview 500 people. You may interview 6 or 5 or 4. Those people you need to get back to and say, we chose someone else, not you, or we've decided to go in a different direction with the job.
But it's actually easier with technology because you have software that built in it. You can say when a candidate is no longer a viable candidate, they get sent an automatic message. Thank you so very much, Stephanie, for applying. We've decided to go with another candidate that better fits our needs.
Right. I mean, I know it's certainly, it is the professional, courteous thing to do, but the truth is the outcome's still the same.
Oh yeah.
I didn't get it. So
well, let's flip that to relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Let's flip that to relationships. So you're in a relationship, and for some people, you would think that things like ghosting, and we're gonna pause on gaslighting. We're gonna come back to that in a minute. But when you think in terms of ghosting, and most people think that happens like, early on in the relationship, or it happens, right away, or something that happens sooner rather than later. But can you imagine being in a relationship for a year, 2 years, and then all of a sudden the communication just stops?
I know a woman who it just happened to. I know when it just happened to. They were engaged. They were engaged.
Really?
They were engaged. They were living together.
Wow.
And it was the kind of thing where he moved in with her, so the lease was in her name, and they were engaged. I was at the engagement party. Right.
Wait a minute. For those who are, I was going to say, for those who are tuning in right now, we're talking about ghosting and gaslighting, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was at the engagement party and they got engaged. And then I guess it was about 8 months later, he goes off to work and she never saw him again.
Wow. Really?
And it was someone, she was very, very worried. He made up a huge lie. Ultimately, he did. I take that back. She was calling. He did call. Like, he worked in the evenings. He did respond from work. There's been a death in the family, horrible, horrible death in the family. She reached out to someone in the family. The person who was supposedly dead calls her back. There was no death in the family.
No death in the family.
He chose that he didn't want to be in that relationship any longer. And after that, she never heard from him again. Didn't come back for what few things he had left. I mean, he had been slowly taking things out, like not furniture, it was all hers, but like his clothes, slowly just taking little things out. And when he went to work that night, that was it.
So I guess did she note? I guess she didn't notice that he was starting to take things out. Did she?
No, he traveled light. He was pretty much a hobo, throw his sack over his shoulder kind of thing.
It's funny you use that term, travel light, because I heard that term in terms of ghosting, and they use that with people who do this. They travel light.
Yeah,
and I was thinking, what does that mean? And I realized that just basically means you have no connection anywhere.
Right. And you don't have to pack up too much, and nobody's going to notice that you took your toothbrush. Nobody's going to notice.
Right. Or you can leave it and go pick up one at CVS.
Right. Like, so they don't notice that.
But I just thought, at the end of the day, everyone has said he did her a favor, because if this is the kind of guy you are, then,
Absolutely. But you learn that on the back end, but it doesn't change the
horrible thing to do to someone. Right.
It doesn't change.
And now, here's what made me angry. She's left doing all the explanations, right? And I know it's not her shame to bear. It's absolutely not. But she's still left with the burden of having to say, yeah, I'm no longer engaged. What happened? Now people are going to ask you.
It's so that story.
Unfair. Yeah. It's just so unfair.
Wow. Yeah.
It is.
But know but that is where, at the end of the day, you get to control your own narrative. You have to control your own story, because you're right. The first thing that people are going to say is, well, what happened? What happened? Just tell the story. Just go tell the story and control the narrative and be done with it. And, being engaged is something a little way more intimate, not even a little bit, but way more intimate. Just in terms of, like I said, you're with someone for a year, 2 years, and then all of a sudden, and I don't believe it's always all of a sudden, like people show signs of things. You don't know what the end result's going to be, but the signs and the red flags and all of that stuff is always there. It's always there.
It definitely is. I mean, but do you think, like, I mean, what is it? Like, if people just become more cowardly, like they can't talk to you. I mean, you think about it. Heck, in grade school, your little boyfriend would let you know he would quit you.
Right.
like,
and talk to your girlfriend.
But the reason you
don't want to talk.
We became more cowardly because of technology.
Yeah.
I don't have to. I can see you coming. I can see your phone call when you call. I can see it. Like back then, you couldn't. Like, the phone rang. You weren't sure if it was somebody else or if it was somebody else. So you took the risk of picking it up. However, today, technology, they can see. They can see your movements. They can see when you're coming, when you're going, where they can see all of those things. So I think people have hidden behind technology, and it allowed them to not have to confront situations or circumstances or saying, I don't want to marry you, or, that kind of stuff. So I think in terms of, why, it's because of the technology we have today. They can control, like I said, they can control the narrative. So,
or the lack of a narrative,
or the lack of a narrative. And ghosting is kind of obvious, and you're right, Val. It's not anything that's new, for sure, because I think people have been doing that for a long time. You know what I mean? They just gave it a name. They just gave it a, they just all of a sudden gave it this trendy name.
I think it's become pretty much the norm. Like people just do it. Like, it's not even something that, we frown upon it, but they don't care.
It used to be more rare. Now it's like a thing. Like, oh yeah, he ghosted me.
There's no accountability.
Or she ghosted me. Like, right. Like it's a thing now.
Yeah. So now let's go to gaslighting. Now, gaslighting, I couldn't quite wrap my mind around gaslighting. Ghosting is one thing, you know what I mean? Right. It's somebody saying, I'm just not going to pick up the phone anymore. I'm not going to call anymore. I'm not going to do any of this stuff anymore. However, gaslighting is a different animal, because this is somebody that's trying to convince you that your reality is not your reality. I'm sorry. I don't know who's really falling for the gaslighting piece, but I guess in terms of people convincing you more of something they are not, more than trying to convince you of something you may not believe in, or
I am an expert in someone trying to gaslight.
Okay. So here's the cool thing about gaslighting, right? It's nothing new. I don't know if you ever watched old movies.
It's a cool thing, right? I was like, wow. Okay.
No, not gaslighting itself, but like the art. So did you ever if you watch old movies, you ever see the movie Gaslight?
It's an old movie. It's a really old movie from like 1944.
It's an old movie. It's Charles Boyer and Ingrid Bergman. Yeah. Great movie, right? And I remember I saw this years ago, and I thought to myself years ago, how stupid is that woman, right? And the premise of the movie is she goes, this guy, this Casanova, love bombs Ingrid Bergman. And they had this whirlwind romance. They get married, but he's also a con man because he's trying to get to these jewels that he thinks are hidden in this house where she's living. Okay. And he gaslights her to make her think she's losing her mind. So they call it gaslight because it's set in like the late 1800s, early 1900s. And it's not electric, that powers the lights. It's gas lamps on the wall. Mm-hmm. So when you're going through the house from room to room, if you light up, if you pull gas to light up, another lamp, it'll flicker. Now he tells her he's out of the house, and she's saying, why are the gas lights flickering? I don't know. You're imagining things. So the whole movie goes through this thing of him trying to convince her that what she's seeing and hearing isn't actually what she's seeing and hearing. Okay. And he's very slick about it, and she trusts him. She loves him. It's her husband. So when I hear the term gaslighting, you're like Charles Boyer trying to pull the wool over people's eyes, and be slick about things. But people who do it, I find, they have an inflated view of themselves because they think everybody's going to believe it.
Right.
So I'm not going to say that they're a narcissist necessarily, but they have some narcissistic tendencies at the very least.
Definitely.
And they will tell you things like, I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, yeah, that's some of the stuff. Say things like, you'll be in a discussion. It can be an argument. Remember when you said last month that you were going to do such and such and such, and he said it. I never said that. And you start thinking, I'm sure you said that. Because why would I remember so vividly? They were like, I never said that. Why would I say something like that? Right?
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the part I don't understand, though. Wait a minute. Before you go further, here's the part I don't understand in what you just said. So you say to me, remember you said that last month? And he's like, I don't remember saying that. I'm trying to figure out the part where I say, oh, well, maybe you didn't.
Maybe you didn't.
As opposed to,
you may not think that. You may not think that. You may not think that. You may think, well, maybe he doesn't remember. Or maybe I heard it differently than he said it. It's not as obvious as the movie.
Is that brainwashing? Is that
that's exactly what it is. It's
brainwashing. Yeah. It's the same thing as gaslighting. It's the same thing. It's just a new term they've tacked onto it. Like I said, the old movie is there, but it's the same thing. But it's really at its core, it's a way of being manipulative, right? They're manipulating it, the situation for themselves, for whatever their given purpose is, right? So other terms were, you're too sensitive, or I'm not angry. Your friend, your family are idiots, or they'll say things like, you don't have my back, or you just don't have my back.
Right.
I can't. Or you ain't no ride or die. Huh? You ain't no real ride or die. Right?
Yeah, I can't believe you would ever think about me. And here's where it gets even nastier, where they'll get into trying to diminish your idea and perception about yourself, saying things like you're fat, you're unattractive, you're stupid, you don't have any money, you're incapable, nobody will ever want you. And
that's just abuse. It's a form of abuse.
Is what it is. Absolutely is. That's just abuse, and which gaslighting they say is nothing but mental abuse.
Abuse.
Emotional abuse. Yep. But I'm saying,
and people do it every day.
What it is, what I'm trying to understand is giving it a name like gaslight, like that stuff. And even when I research gaslighting, it is emotional and verbal abuse. That is what it is. But I'm trying to understand why we look at gaslighting, and when you say that you're trying to make my reality not real, I can't process that in my brain. If I see my phone sitting on the table and you're telling me my phone's not there, I see it sitting on the table. I don't understand how we get gaslighted in those terms.
But it won't be things like that.
Right. It won't be anything black and white like that. It's like, the guy who you start to think he's cheating on you, and you've got all these signs telling you he is, and you confront him and he says these things to make you think, what are you talking about? You're crazy. I was working late. I was this. I was talking to a coworker. And so they'll tell you things like that. So yeah, it's never anything as simple as, oh, it's raining outside. No, it's not. Like, you can see it is. You can see it is. So it's not going to be that simple.
But now it's funny you would say that, Val. The thing about gaslighters is they will lie just as soon as say good morning. That's how they communicate. They communicate by lying.
That is my point right there, because some of them are such narcissists that they will look outside and say it's not raining. And I'm telling you, the way our brains work, and we could literally see the rain. And if somebody we love and care about and adore and emotionally attached to can literally convince us that
but you know what the gaslighter would say? The gaslighter would say, a gaslighter would say, I told you it's not raining. That's drizzle.
Yeah, right. It's just mist. It's just mist. Yeah, it's not raining. You don't need an umbrella for that. Right. You don't need
crazy.
Meanwhile, you drenched. Okay. And he's like,
my hair done going out 3 sizes. Is that?
He's saying, it's just drizzle. It's not raining. It's just drizzle. You know, seriously.
Hurricane Ida outside. You can't believe nothing they say.
People's lives are getting turned upside down as a result of ghosting and gaslighting. People are becoming emotionally destroyed as a result of ghosting
financially. You know, because they can screw you up your money.
And not only that, you know, people who do the whole gaslight thing, they're after something. Okay. They're after something. They want something you have. They're after something that is material or tangible. The ghosting piece leaves you emotionally destroyed because you're left with no answers. You're left with no answers. So while gaslighting, he's giving you, and the reason I say he is because they say most gaslighting is done by men. It's done by men.
Yep.
But, you know, in gaslighting, he's feeding you more information than you actually need. And then on the other side of that, ghosting.
That's how you know it's a lie. Way too much information.
All that splaining.
Right.
Exactly. And all of that, you know, I know best. I know better. I know, you know, I know, and I know that people like this, and I know narcissists that they only seek a certain type of, and if you're not that person, they're getting out. They're getting out.
Well,
they're not, if you are not that person, and they may not know you're not that person in the beginning, but when they find out that you are not, and you do not meet the requirements to be gaslighted or ghosted,
all of a sudden you're a problem now.
Well, you are an issue. Like you do not fit the mold. You are out.
And that's what abusers do. They seek out people that they know they can do that to. And then if they find out, like you said in the beginning, if they find out, oh, wait, I can't do that with you, then they're out.
Yep.
Right. They don't want to participate in any of that.
Or if you call them out on it. If you say, you know what, you are a liar. And that's not true.
Right. And they don't want any parts of that at all, because, you know, especially with ghosting, first of all, they don't want to communicate or confront anything at all. That's why they jump ship. But the gaslighting piece is really about making you believe I know more than you know, and follow, because they're looking for control. And if they can control your mind or get you to a place where your mind is controlled, then they can talk you out of anything or talk you into anything.
Into anything, right.
They can talk you out of something. They can talk you into anything. And so it's really about that control issue. That's why it's attached to narcissists, because all narcissists want is control. They want you to know that they are the end all be all, whether they know what they're talking about or not. They want you to think that they know everything. That they know everything.
And they're trying to convince you they know everything. Listen, all you gotta do is watch an episode of Catfish and you'll know. It's like
and it's like it's an epidemic. You know, it's like it's an epidemic. And if I was only hearing it from young women, I'd say, oh, that's a young women problem, right?
It's not
from young women, older women, Black women, white women. It's just across the board.
Everybody.
Now, do you think that gaslighting and things like gaslighting and ghosting is attached to mental illness?
When you say mental illness, and that they don't know, like insanity, where they don't know that what they're doing is wrong,
or there's some emotional backdrop.
I think there is definitely a personality, I'll say disorder.
I mean, you can make an argument for it. You know, do you go as far as saying mental illness, but you could certainly make an argument for it. I mean, you know, anything you do that toys with one's emotions, or the fact that you are someone who's prone to do that to people, you can certainly make an argument for, yeah, there's something there. Now, is it something you need to take medication for? Probably not. Maybe you just need to talk to somebody. But
right. And even in all the research that I've done, they do speak highly of, you know, actually seeking a therapist, not just for the ghoster, but for the ghostee too. Because again, you could leave someone wrecked. If they don't have their shit together, you could leave someone really emotional wreck. So I mean, I think that it has to do, because someone who treats people in such a way, you got to be damaged. You have to be damaged.
Just total disregard and callousness.
Right. And maybe someone's done it to them. I mean, that's sometimes what's that saying? Hurt people hurt people.
Right. You have to be damaged somewhere when you are walking around in the world, kind of doing this on a regular basis to people, or not even on a regular basis to people, just in general. You have to be damaged.
I mean, think about the woman I was talking about earlier who was engaged and her fiance ghosted her. What is her next relationship going to look like?
Right.
Will you trust him?
Right.
You know, like, what is it going to look like? And I don't know, you know, but I think it's just the damage they do to people, and they don't care.
No. And listen, I don't think some of them can. That's why I think there's a piece of mental illness with that, because I don't think they can. I don't think narcissists even understand that they are narcissists.
Well, that's why they
don't think their mind can process it.
Well, it doesn't. And that's why they're not going out getting help for that. They're not.
Exactly. Exactly. They don't believe that they are. And so I think the same thing, because you have to have an emotional disconnect and no sense of empathy to do shit like gaslighting and ghosting.
They think they're justified. They think they are justified. They will never look at it as, look at this thing I did to this person. It'll always be the other person's fault somehow.
Yep.
Absolutely, because that's what they do. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Like you said earlier, Steph, like, you didn't have my back.
Right. You didn't have my back. She didn't have my back.
And you're like,
really?
She said, really? Like, really? Did you want me to have your back with that foolishness?
With that foolishness. Right.
Right.
You lying from the root of the tutor, and you want me to have your back and back you up with that? Absolutely not.
I do think that there is, like I said, a hint of mental illness in this situation, you know, in these situations somewhere, somehow, because there's no way that you're walking around in the world doing this and not have some history of either being hurt, like Val said, or someone hurting you emotionally from some childhood trauma or some bad relationship. I remember, you know, a guy asking me, you know, do I take my past relationships into my new ones? And you have to be a well-balanced individual and really know yourself to answer that question authentically. And I will never let a bad relationship stop me from finding love. If finding love is what I want. But I get it that you start to build this list of awareness. So now the next one comes along and you're like, yeah, let me go down the list and see if I see this, or if I see that, or if I see this. you start to build that thing. And I say to anybody, build your list of awareness, because we do need to be aware. And I tell you one thing that we really have to get better with is those red flags. And the thing about people who gaslight or people who do ghosting is that they cover it up. It's like putting a red flag in the middle and then surrounding it with all these green flags. So they put all this good stuff. They come with all of this good stuff.
Really,
exactly. They come with all of these green flags. You know what I mean? Right. You're like, wow. And then that one red flag comes. You're like, well, it's only one red flag.
Right. So when he says, I didn't say that.
Green flags. So I'm going to bypass the red flag. And the problem with that is
he's a good guy. Right.
Like he's super romantic. He just didn't come home that one night.
Maybe he was working late. He does work late.
Right. So you're like, because, he just took you to dinner the night before and it was romantic and it was wonderful. And then the next night he didn't come home. So you're like, well, we had a great night the night before. So but Stephanie said it, and I think they need to coin this phrase. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
That phrase needs to be coined. He's a good guy.
I think we should be equally comfortable. We should be equally comfortable saying he's a piece of shit too. I think we should be equally comfortable.
I don't know why we have not coined that phrase and just say he's a piece of shit. And the other thing is understanding. And Chris Rock helps me with this. A long time ago, he did a stand-up and he said, listen, we give all this stuff, these fancy names and shit. And guess what? At the end of the day, it is CRAZY. Period. The shit is crazy. I think that's a term. He's crazy. What he's doing is crazy. Listen, it is crazy.
It is.
We can give it gaslighting. We can say it's ghosting. We can say it's, whatever we want to call it. We can call it mental illness. Some of this shit is just crazy. And those people need to get their shit together. And that's for real. Because we need to stop. And I think that is what makes us bypass those red flags, because we start having a heart for it. And we know the shit's crazy. When we see it, we know it's crazy. But we start having an emotional attachment, or we get, we start having more empathy because we're like, oh my God, well, maybe, as a kid, he didn't get this, or he didn't get that, or, oh my God, he went through 4 bad relationships, or he's been married 3 and 4 times, and it was them. It wasn't him. It was them.
There's always a sob story.
It was them. It wasn't him. And because he's with me, I'm the chosen one, because it was them, wasn't him. It's all crazy shit.
It is. But I love when men talk about, I don't want women who bring their baggage from the last relationship, right? They talk about this baggage as if they're not the ones responsible for the baggage that's being carted around. And I don't think it's all baggage, right? Me exercising some wisdom, learning from that experience and exercising some wisdom, so that if I see certain things now, my reaction is going to be different, right? That's not baggage. Right? It's not baggage. I'm just not doing the same thing I used to do. That's all.
But what I don't understand is, why is it that we bring in the baggage? What they coming with? They coming with empty-handed? I mean, they ain't got no suitcase.
Well, they're traveling light. Remember, they're traveling light.
They ain't got no suitcase. Like, look, they left their luggage at the other chick's house. They get ready to build a new. They were
the ones who did the gaslighting and ghosting. Oh yeah, they free.
Back a new suitcase of bullshit with you. So it's like, but and I don't want to. I definitely would never tag that to all relationships and all men, because we all know that's not true. However, it is really becoming almost a phenomenon that people are doing this thing, and it's basically because they can, and they're selective. They are selective because, like I said, the minute you don't fit the mold, you're out. You're out.
Well,
the minute you can't be gaslighted.
Even giving this behavior these cute little slang terms, to me, makes it acceptable. It makes it acceptable.
That's my point.
Yeah, it makes it acceptable. Like, it's trendy. Like, ooh, he ghosted me. Like, it's something to say. Like, that's not a good thing.
Because listen, back in the day, we called that shit dissing. He dissed your ass. Okay. Right. So I don't, you can give it whatever name you want. It is disrespectful.
It is.
It is disrespectful. That's what it is. It's not ghosting. It's not dissing. It's not, all of the gaslighting, all these cute little, it's disrespectful. And it's inhumane. And you have no, regard for human beings. You have no regard for human beings at all.
They don't care about the trail they've left behind, because it's never just one person. It's a bunch of people. And I will say this too. There are a body of people who encourage and support some of this bad behavior. And there are people who kind of say, oh, okay, no, especially with narcissists, you really are great. You really are okay. What you do is okay. So for all the friends, families, moms, dads supporting this behavior and not calling these people out on the carpet for what they're doing, you are emboldening.
And we have to call it.
You got to call it for what it is.
Call it what it is. Yep. We have to call it what it is, because it is unacceptable. And, for anyone who has experienced this at all, you have to consider yourself lucky that that you got out. Consider yourself lucky. But at the same time, I'm telling you, it is a horrible, horrible thing that people are doing. It's a horrible thing. But that is going to do it for this episode of The Gist. It was a great conversation, ladies, about ghosting and gaslighting. I am so excited we are back. I have a host of topics as we are going forward. So make sure that, and next week, we are absolutely positively going Facebook Live. So it's dropping right into your feed. We are going Facebook Live. You'll be able to comment and put your thoughts and ideas and suggestions right there on the dime. We are going Facebook Live next Wednesday. So make sure you check us out. Cool.
Sounds good.
I like it.
So listen, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of The Gist, because when it comes to life, love, and the pursuit of happiness, sometimes you just need a moment to get your shit together. Get your shit together. People who ghosting and gaslight, get your shit together and have a great night. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Night.
Bye.